The Young and the Restless spoilers preview week of December 8 to December 12, 2025. In the uneasy calm settling over Genoa City after Noah and Sienna's explosive confrontation with Victor, another storm was already forming at the edges of their fragile peace, because Matt Clark, humiliated, exposed, and newly aware that the woman he once believed he controlled had slipped completely beyond his reach, was beginning to rebuild himself around a single poisonous obsession: revenge. His failure to keep Sienna under his influence during the abduction had wounded his ego in ways far deeper than any physical injury. Matt was not simply angry, he felt erased, diminished, mocked, and he swore quietly to the darkness that he would rise again and destroy every person he blamed for his downfall. He would make Noah pay for stealing the woman who had slipped from his grasp. He would make Sienna suffer for choosing love over fear. And he would punish Victor Newman, because in Matt's twisted reasoning, a man with that much power had no right to interfere unless he was prepared to be burned by the resulting war. Matt's vow for revenge was not loud or theatrical, it was cold, quiet, and methodical, the kind of vow made by someone who preferred to strike when the world least expected it. Meanwhile, Sienna Bacall, still bruised from the emotional collision with Victor, found that something had hardened within her. The old version of herself, the one who might have cowered, apologized, or rationalized Victor's cruelty, no longer existed. That woman had been consumed by the fierce, rising instinct of a mother determined to defend her child. She would not let Victor Newman, with all his money, legacy, and intimidation, bully her into submission. She had survived Mitch. She had survived near death. She had survived the crushing realization that the Newman patriarch saw her as disposable. Nothing Victor could do now would break her. Instead, his threats had crystallized her resolve. She moved through town with a new steadiness, a quiet defiance that radiated in the way she held her head and the way she touched her stomach. The world might be sharpening its knives, but she was done being prey. Noah, caught between two worlds, the Newman dynasty and the life he was trying to build with Sienna, felt crushed under the weight of responsibility. He knew Victor would not surrender easily, and he knew the Newman family loved fiercely but destructively. Sharon and Nick, his parents, had always wanted what was best for him, but now best had become a dangerous word. Noah needed them to understand that Sienna wasn't a mistake, a scandal, or a burden. She was someone he loved deeply, someone carrying his child, someone he was willing to fight for. So he prepared himself for the conversations that would inevitably come, especially with Sharon, whose intuition had always cut straight through him, and Nick, whose protectiveness often masked disappointment. Noah rehearsed his words, reminding himself to stay calm, to reason, to explain, but a part of him feared that even his own parents would be swept into Victor's gravitational pull. The Newman family had a way of closing ranks, and Noah was terrified that he would be forced to choose between blood and love again. Still, he resolved to speak to them, to fight for understanding, to make them see Sienna through his eyes. It would not be easy, but nothing about this stage of his life would be. As these emotional wars brewed beneath the surface, Genoa City attempted to move forward into the Thanksgiving season, as if tradition could disguise the tension running just below the polished dining tables. The annual festivities would go on, because in Genoa City, holidays often meant forced civility layered over deep fractures. Diane Jenkins and Jack Abbott found themselves back in their familiar rhythm of strategizing, worrying, and overanalyzing everything connected to Jabot and the threat of Victor's relentless pursuit of dominance. Their conversation drifted, as it often did, toward the looming danger of the AI-driven sabotage linked to the Arabesque project, a digital weapon that had almost slipped out of their control. Diane voiced her anxieties with clipped sentences, pacing as she spoke, while Jack remained seated, trying to ground himself in rationality. It wasn't working. The threat of Victor Newman was never a matter of business alone, it was personal, historical, inevitable. The door swung open, and Kane entered with the kind of energy that suggested both desperation and determination. He didn't bother with greetings. Instead, he demanded to know if Victor had attacked them yet, claiming that he had barely managed to neutralize Arabesque before it spiraled into something catastrophic. Kane insisted that they weren't prepared for the real war Victor was about to initiate. But Jack, weary from years of battling both external enemies and internal family chaos, wasn't in the mood for warnings delivered too late. His response dripped with sarcasm. "Oh, how the mighty have fallen." For a brief moment, Kane looked genuinely rattled. Jack reminded him, quietly but with lethal precision, that if Jabot fell because of Arabesque, Kane would be held accountable. Kane quickly offered assistance, eager to reclaim relevance or redemption, but Jack shut him down sharply. The best thing Kane could do was step aside and stay far away from the Abbott family before he caused more damage. It wasn't cruelty, it was exhaustion. Jack had no space left for unreliable allies. Across town, beneath the soft jazz drifting through the lower floor of the jazz club, Adam Newman met with Phyllis Summers, both of them moving with the tension of people who had learned to anticipate disaster. Adam wasted no time sliding into the booth opposite her. His voice was low, urgent, carrying the warning he had been piecing together since overhearing whispers of Victor's next grand offensive. He revealed that Victor was planning to strike Jabot during the launch event for Abbott Communications, a moment designed to showcase unity, innovation, and progress. In reality, it would become the perfect stage for Victor to cripple his rival publicly. Phyllis raised an eyebrow, recognizing the familiar scent of chaos that always accompanied Victor's schemes. But Adam had more to say, and his tone shifted into something even darker. The real danger wasn't the attack itself. It was what would happen afterward. Victor never launched a strike without ensuring he had 2 or 3 follow-up moves already in place. Whatever he had planned beyond Jabot would be far more devastating, far more personal, far more irreversible. And if Adam had learned anything from a lifetime under Victor's shadow, it was that the second wave was always designed to hit where it hurt most. The city hummed around them. People celebrating, families preparing for Thanksgiving, businesses planning events, yet beneath it all lay the sense of a tightening web. Matt Clark sharpening his knives in silence. Sienna refusing to bow to Newman power. Noah preparing to face his parents with truths they might not want to hear. Jack and Diane bracing for a storm from Victor. Kane scrambling to stay relevant. Adam and Phyllis gazing into a future shaped by destruction. Genoa City was on the brink again, caught in a series of converging battles, each more personal than the last. Thanksgiving would come, the tables would be set, the families would gather, but beneath the forced smiles and polite conversations, war drums would be beating. Revenge, betrayal, legacy, protection, and love were all colliding at once. And no one, not Victor, not Jack, not Noah, not Sienna, not Adam, had any idea how violently the next chapter was about to unfold. Adam could sense the restless tension swelling inside Phyllis long before she admitted anything, and as they sat together at the dimly lit corner of the jazz club, surrounded by murmurs of conversations that meant nothing compared to the chaos about to unfold, he leaned in with that familiar mixture of cynicism and warning. He told her that if she tried to take control now, if she attempted to insert herself in the power shift brewing at Jabot, it would look messy, suspicious, and ultimately dangerous. Phyllis didn't even bother pretending to be surprised by his assessment. She confessed in a tired, irritated exhale that Kane had been pressuring her relentlessly, pushing and pushing for her to admit she'd stolen the AI program, hoping to corner her into some confession he could twist into an advantage. But she hadn't given him anything. She held the line, even as the accusations became exhausting, even as she felt the storyline circling her like a vulture that refused to die. "I think the game is starting to bore him," she muttered, speaking not only for herself but for every viewer and character who had grown sick of Kane's manipulative persistence. There was a bitterness in her voice, but also a strange defiance. Phyllis Summers always thrived on drama, just not the kind where she lacked control. Adam nodded, lowering his voice. After tomorrow night, he told her, everything is going to move very fast. There was something ominous in the way he said it, something that suggested gears already turning behind the scenes, Victor's gears, Jabot's gears, Newman gears, machines that devoured people without hesitation once set into motion. Phyllis didn't push him for details. She knew better. With Adam, silence often held more truth than words. But their moment of conspiratorial calm didn't last. Kane appeared, approaching them with that forced confidence he always used when he wanted to mask insecurity with arrogance. He demanded to know what the two of them were talking about. Phyllis, without missing a beat, pointed directly at him. "You," she said flatly, enjoying the slight flicker of annoyance that crossed his face. Before Kane could pry deeper, Adam stepped in with practiced ease, lying that Phyllis had been defending him. It was a clean lie, smooth enough to slip past suspicion, and it bought Phyllis a few seconds of breathing room. Adam excused himself shortly after, leaving the toxic tension between Kane and Phyllis to settle like smoke. As soon as Adam walked away, Kane dropped the facade. He leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice low but harsh. He wanted the truth, demanded it, actually. He wanted Phyllis to admit whether she had stolen the AI or not. Phyllis, who had been playing this dance far longer than Kane even realized, lied effortlessly. She told him she hadn't touched the AI. That she wasn't the thief. That he was wasting his breath. But Kane wasn't satisfied. His expression twisted into something cruel, something vindictive. He told her he didn't believe her, that her lies only proved she could never be trusted. He accused her of stabbing him in the back and vowed that he would make her pay for it. His bitterness spilled out like venom, resentment mixed with desperation, the kind of toxic brew that made men like Kane dangerous. Phyllis refused to be intimidated. She reminded him that he had no leverage, no real power, nothing that could checkmate her the way he imagined. She met his threats with ice, with a certainty that struck at Kane's fragile ego. But Kane wasn't done. He leaned closer, almost whispering, promising that he would destroy every opportunity she might have at reclaiming influence at Jabot. "You'll regret not trusting me," he snarled before turning away, carrying his wounded pride like a weapon he fully intended to sharpen. It wasn't just a threat, it was the beginning of a new vendetta, one that would bleed into the halls of Jabot and stain the Abbott legacy in ways no one yet understood. Meanwhile, far away in Los Angeles, the story took a quieter but no less intense turn. Noah and Sienna arrived at their hotel, exhausted from the emotional battlefield they had left behind, unaware of the confrontations now echoing through Genoa City in their absence. They stepped into the lobby, both searching for normalcy but expecting tension. And they found it the moment Sharon, Nick, and Victor approached. Relief washed over Sharon first. Raw, maternal relief as she pulled Noah into her arms with trembling hands. "You're finally here." "Safe," she whispered, as if she needed the words to be real. Nick placed a supportive hand on Noah's shoulder, misgivings momentarily overshadowed by family instinct. Then Sienna stepped forward, offering a polite smile. "I'm Sienna," she introduced herself, bracing for whatever came next. Victor turned toward her, expression hardening into the same judgmental glare he had worn the day he tried to force her into ending the pregnancy. He didn't offer a greeting. Didn't attempt civility. He merely studied her with the cold precision of someone assessing a threat. "I know who you are," he said, voice low and edged. Then, with a single cutting question, he reminded everyone of exactly who he was. "The question is, where is your husband?" The implication struck like a blow. Sienna stiffened. Noah's eyes widened in disbelief and outrage. Sharon's jaw tightened, understanding the cruel weight behind Victor's words. Nick exhaled sharply, recognizing the familiar pattern, Victor preparing the battlefield with pointed questions before launching his full attack. It was the opening line of a war none of them were ready for. But Victor Newman never waited for readiness. He created it, or shattered it, according to his own timeline. And now, as tension rippled through the group, as old wounds reopened and new fault lines formed beneath their feet, everyone could sense the truth. The real battle wasn't behind them. It was beginning now. Noah spoke with a kind of urgency that made the air around him vibrate, insisting that Sienna should come back to Genoa City with him, repeating that she would be safe there, that he could protect her in ways she never had the chance to experience. But the moment the words left his mouth, Sharon and Nick exchanged a look, the kind of parental telepathy that conveyed entire arguments in a single glance, and quietly pulled Noah aside, asking to speak to him alone. Victor, sensing that the conversation was one he did not need to supervise, escorted Sienna into the hotel lounge, leaving behind a tension so thick it felt like a storm swelling over glass windows. The second they were alone, Nick lost whatever thin thread of patience he had been clinging to. "What the hell are you thinking?" he demanded, his voice rising and falling like a man caught between fear and anger. Noah fired back immediately, unmoved. He wasn't leaving Sienna alone in Los Angeles, not after everything she had endured, not after the kidnapping, not after Matt's psychotic spiral. He couldn't abandon her, and he refused to pretend otherwise. Sharon tried to soften the confrontation, but the fear in her eyes betrayed her. "You're attaching yourself to someone with problems far bigger than you can realistically handle," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. She wasn't attacking Sienna, she was terrified her son was walking willingly into a trap with emotional landmines he wouldn't see until they detonated. But Noah had closed that door in his mind already. Nick stepped in again, crossing his arms as if bracing himself to physically block Noah if he had to. "If you bring Sienna back to Genoa City," he said, "you're rolling out a damn red carpet for that bastard Matt Clark to follow her straight into our town. You're basically inviting him into our home." His voice dropped into something sharper. "Do you understand that? Do you understand what you're risking?" Noah heard them. But he didn't listen. Because love, especially the kind forged through trauma, didn't negotiate with logic or parental warnings. It dug in deeper when challenged. And though Sharon and Nick didn't know it yet, Noah's mind was long past persuasion. He wasn't bringing Sienna home because it was safe. He was bringing her home because he loved her. Nothing they said would crack that foundation. Meanwhile, in the lounge, Victor and Sienna faced their own storm. Sienna tried to explain that she had seen the looks on Victor's face, on Sharon's face, on Nick's face, every flicker of hesitation, worry, suspicion, when Noah suggested she return to Genoa City. She had seen judgment wrapped in concern, fear wrapped in politeness. But beneath all of that, the harshest truth remained: she had no money left. She had been drained emotionally, financially, spiritually. Her life had shrunk into a series of survival choices. And now even survival felt fragile. Victor studied her in silence, weighing her words like he weighed business risks, and then told her to name her price. The bluntness of the sentence startled her, not because she misunderstood it, but because she understood it exactly. Victor wasn't offering charity. Victor didn't believe in charity. He believed in transactions. He believed in leverage. He believed in control. And this was his way of establishing the terms. Sienna steadied herself and asked about the dark room, Matt's bar, the last piece of property that had meant anything in her chaotic life. Victor didn't soften his tone. He told her that the dark room was now Noah's. Legally transferred. Permanently gone from Matt's grasp. "You stay away from it," Victor warned. "And you stay away from Noah unless I say otherwise." But Sienna didn't shrink. Her spine straightened, and for the first time in the conversation, she looked Victor Newman directly in the eyes without fear. "I made myself a promise," she said. "Never again. Never again will I let anyone bully me." Something sharp flickered in Victor's eyes, not admiration, but the recognition of a kind of strength he had not expected to find in her. She was not weak. She was not foolish. She was dangerous in a way he had not accounted for, a woman with nothing left to lose. That kind of woman could topple kings, or at least inconvenience them. And in Victor Newman's world, inconvenience was intolerable. Across town, miles away from the polished hotel floors and suffocating tension, the dark room swallowed Matt Clark like a void. He stormed inside, slammed the door shut with enough force to make the walls shudder, and locked it behind him as though barricading himself from the world he believed was conspiring against him. The bar was empty, the neon lights flickering like an erratic heartbeat, casting jagged shadows across bottles that gleamed like glass weapons. Without hesitation, he grabbed the nearest bottle, twisted off the cap, and poured it into himself like gasoline into a simmering fire. His hands shook, not from fear but from rage so profound it made his fingers twitch. He fumbled for his phone, dialing with sloppy urgency until someone finally picked up. "Check my accounts," he snapped. "Now." He waited, seconds, minutes, hours, time had no meaning to a man unraveling. Then he heard the answer, and something inside him snapped cleanly, violently. Everything was gone. Every dollar, every safety net, every asset siphoned, stripped, annihilated. Only one man had the power, the reach, the ruthlessness to pull something like this off without leaving fingerprints. "Victor Newman, you bastard!" Matt roared. The sound tore through the empty bar like shrapnel, bouncing off the walls and returning to him in fractured echoes. He threw back another long swallow of liquor, feeling it burn down to the pit of the fury that had replaced his soul. He wasn't grieving the money. He was grieving the humiliation. The powerlessness. The knowledge that a man who barely regarded him as an insect had crushed him effortlessly.